The only thing hotter than the weather in Florida this summer might be USL Championship's Eastern Conference playoff race. 4 points separating third from eighth, with both of the league's Sunshine State dwellers squarely in the mix as Miami FC hosts the Tampa Bay Rowdies, presented by Helbiz from Ricardo Silva Stadium alongside Devin Kerr. I'm Joe Malva, delighted to have you along this evening on ESPN+. As we take a look at the standings, you see exactly what I mean. Detroit in third, 25 points. Miami in eighth, 21 points. If Miami wants to continue their climb up the rankings, they need to continue their hot starts in matches.
They're a bit of an enigma this year because every coach around the USL Championship talks about them with such high praise. But when you start to look into their actual results, they've struggled a little bit. When they get out in front, they stay out in front. That's not a problem. 5-1-2 when scoring first. Their 5 goals in the first 15 minutes, that's the best in USL Championship. The problem is, Joe, is when they concede first. On the backside of that argument, 0-3-1. When they give up the first goal, they have yet to come back and win a game. Get out in front, stay out in front, and keep everybody else in the rearview mirror.
Now, if the Tampa Bay Rowdies want to end up ahead of the pack, they're going to have to rely on Jake LaCava and Leo Fernandez, so you take us ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I've noticed this change within the front line. Basically, they've moved Fernandez in one of the 10 spots next to Jake LaCava up top. So you've got this front three. Still have the point man in Dos Santos, but more importantly, Leo Fernandez, the inversion on the right-hand side. He's so comfortable down into the pocket, dragging runners with him. Is it groundbreaking? No, but it's different than the look that you see for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. As he comes in, you pull one of the center backs up, the wing back gets stuck, and the next thing you know, you've got space to run in behind. My personal favorite is when you get LaCava and Fernandez combining in 1v1 situations. Watch on the pinch back inside. Again, down into the pocket, head on a swivel, knows exactly where the support is coming from. Leo Fernandez, Jake LaCava, 10 goals for in the last 4 games since the switch against Phoenix Rising.
This team is always among the best in the Eastern Conference, back-to-back conference final appearances. Miami wants to enter that conversation. These teams met back in April. It was a 1-0 win for Miami. Can Tampa Bay get their revenge? We'll find out next on ESPN+.
Some people think Miami is just flamingos and palm trees.
And hell yes, we have badass sunsets.
But Miami's Little Havana,
Doral,
Little Haiti,
Hialeah,
Wynwood, Coconut Grove,
Kendall,
Calle Ocho,
Sweetwater,
Homestead,
cortaditos y coladas
empanadas y croquetas.
is so much more. This is the 305.
This is who we really are. This is what we are all about.
I am Latino.
I'm a disruptor.
I am LGBTQ.
I am a villain.
I am a mother.
I am Haitian.
I am an athlete.
I am an activist.
I am a king.
I am American dream.
I am the future.
I am
Miami
FC.
Ready to get things going here from Ricardo Silva Stadium as the teams head out onto the field. A look at the starting lineups brought to you by Helbiz, beginning with the home Miami side. A couple of tweaks in the lineup. Anthony Pulis mentioned that he would still have to be mindful of rotations with the busy week they've had.
No changes all in the 18 itself, but the change does come at the 9. Romeo Parks will come in and left back spot for Othello Ba. Remember, with the wing backs, they will get them very high in transition, spread the back 3 out, trying to overload the midfield. That's going to be important tonight because of the way that the Tampa Bay Rowdies have been attacking and defending. When you start to look at the front line for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, the way that it looks is LaCava, Kyle Gregg, and Fernandez. We highlighted them in the open. Specifically watch the way that Antley and Armin get into the attack here as well, because they can spread the front line out, move into the channels as well, and then also on the back line. You could get a fluctuation between Jordan Scarlett and Lawrence Wyke. They've teetered back and forth the past couple of games. One of the most impressive things about this team is their versatility as the year has gone on, because of the interchangeability of players as time has passed.
So many different players who can do so many different things in that Tampa Bay lineup. It's no secret these are two of the teams that might factor in when all is said and done at the end of the playoffs. But it's also no secret that they haven't started the way they've wanted to and haven't picked up nearly as many points as they would have hoped at this juncture of the season. Culprit, a handful of ties for both teams. Tampa Bay with 5 ties. Miami also with 5 ties, and both managers spoke a bit about that during the week. Kind of this tiptoe between changing something to help them in the right direction, but not changing too much where it then hurts them because the performances have been good. The results just haven't quite been there. And for the second time this season, it's Miami and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay in the neon from right to left, and Miami in the blue from left to right. Here's Armin. Guillen plays it along. And here's Wyke. Antley gives it up. Flicked on to Antley. Already seeing in the attacking third some of the little triangles and combos that work out for Tampa Bay. Devin, when these teams met the first time this season, you called Miami's performance one of the best game plan executions you've seen all season. What do you mean by that exactly?
There's a ton that you have to digest within that comment, and the first one is understand that 5 games in, nobody had any clue that Anthony Pulis was going to be willing to drop into a back 3 with a wing-back style system, because no one had ever seen it before. He had trained it, tried to implement it in practice, both here at St. Louis and in his time in MLS at Inter Miami, but it hadn't actually taken place in a full team sheet. So that was the first one. Number 2, even though they did drop into a system that they weren't accustomed to, it was a departure stylistically from what they were trying to accomplish. You will see the ball, although he's defensive minded, he's trying to become more advanced in his roles and move it from A to B quicker. That wasn't the case. They sat a lot deeper, absorbed a lot of pressure, and it wasn't the prettiest at times, but you're able to execute. You go on the road, Rowdies produce chances, but you're able to pick one off on the other end. Sometimes that's what it takes. So when they set out into the week and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit back. We're going to allow them to have more of the possession, sit deep, and try and counter. That was a perfect plan in terms of execution, and I haven't seen another team overall do it better yet.
See if they can have lightning strike twice, but I also probably shouldn't say the word lightning out loud after what you and Mike Watts had to deal with Miami and Indy in the midweek. Yellow card shown here to Scarlett, and Anthony Pulis talked a bit about that, not really helping out their case in that game against Indy. As we take a look at the Hellbiz replay, what elicited that yellow card, the right hand here of Scarlett. But he said it was difficult. He thought they had something on Indy going into that game, and it almost acted like an early halftime that they then had a chance, Indy, to change their shape, change their tactic, and respond a bit better to Miami.
Well, remember, they had to deal with it in the Pittsburgh Riverhounds game as well. That was a delay and the the light outage at halftime, where literally the lights went out. That was awesome. Paying the utility bill in the 305. It does something to you, though. You're in a rhythm and feel like things are going well for you, and then all of a sudden, everything switches up. It's hard to stay mentally focused in those spots, and sometimes it turns on you. I would say overall that it's also something Anthony Pulis has addressed, that he feels like, and I would agree with him, that probably outside of that Rowdies match, they haven't been able to accomplish a full 90, elements or not. You'll see significant stretches where this team is the aggressor. They are the better team, and then all of a sudden it drops off. They concede goals. Sometimes that ends up in a draw. Sometimes they're trying to chase in a game and they can't get back into it. By no means is this a team that you look at and think, well, they're poor, they need help. There's plenty of talent here. It's just fine-tuning in order to get themselves a bit better results at the tail end of 90 minutes.
We asked Anthony Pulis about that, this run of draws they've had in the last 8 matches. He said he spent a lot of time thinking about it, doesn't remember a situation in his career where he's had a stretch like this with so many ties. He mentioned that he has a good relationship with Mark Lowry, and after that game against Indy, they caught up, and Mark came over to him, and he said, you guys are doing really well. You only have 1 loss in your last 8. And Anthony turned around and said, well, we also have only 2 wins in our last 8. So it's a matter of how you look at it. Glass half empty, glass half full. Performing well, but not losing, not winning. It's just kind of there right now.
Beauty in the eye of the beholder.
And right now, I think I'd take their performances. Easy. You know, they'll eventually turn into some points.
You know, the Rowdies have dealt with similar woes of their own, though, right? I mean, it's no secret the injury bug that has jumped into the team again. I feel like the past couple of years they've really had to deal with it. Of course, the center back spot is what everybody's going to look at, but you know, I sat down with Neil Collins last night, and I mentioned this on the call with Anthony Pulis as well, how most teams look at the Tampa Bay Rowdies historically for the defensive output. Last year, they took a significant jump into the final third of the field, right? The 2020 team that went to the final that never was against Phoenix Rising was incredible on the defensive side of things. It lacked a little bit offensively. That's not the case anymore. And with the change on the front line, Fernandez and LaCava dropping underneath, you're starting to see it pay its dividends. And now, can you put that whole package together? I mentioned coming in their versatility. Neil Collins was really quick to say it's one of their key strengths. You know, I talked to him about the front line, and he said, yeah, but here's the great thing about us is we referenced the Van Kiazil move and bringing him in. Everybody looks at that and thinks center back, right? But he can play him at center back. He can play him at the holding midfielder spot. You can say the same thing about Lawrence Wyke. We've seen it, the interchange between Wyke and Scarlett on the back line. It makes it very dangerous and difficult as well because you're only getting these lineups an hour out. You have an idea, I should say, of what the understanding could be, but you're not exactly sure what the matchups are, and then all of a sudden, you got to change in game. That's not easy.
Here comes LaCava to the end line, squares it back, but there was nobody helping him out. He's made a habit this season, LaCava, of making something out of nothing, and it almost seemed like that would be the case there, except the assistance never came. Arman for Ekra, and back again. Josh Perez takes his space through the middle. Ricochets out to Sordo. Now Parks tries to chip it up to Perez. It's dealt with by Wyke. Akinyoti for Ba. Anthony Pulis wants his wingbacks to be involved on each of the attacks his team enjoys in a match. Odelo Ba on the season has a pair of goals. Mark Segber's on the bench tonight, a goal and an assist. Sion McFarland comes into that spot on the right side. Pulis and Collins buddies. Anthony Pulis mentioned he hopes to set it up to schedule a drink with him after the game, as this header from Perez is harmless.
Fans, the best family of Miami sports and entertainment are still on sale, including half-season.
Neil Collins echoed that as well. Said that he's very fortunate to have a good working relationship with Anthony Pulis. They've shared meals together, talked about their teams, how to improve them, talked about the league. Felt they share a lot in common, all working to a common goal in this league, and both like-minded, very similar. Again on to White. Hilton calling forward in the middle. Devin, you asked Anthony Pulis to expound a bit on Lewis Hilton as a player and preparing for him as an opponent, and he just gushed over the type of player that Lewis Hilton is and what he brings to the table.
Everybody kind of looks at what he's done for the Rowdies.
Here's Antley, plays it through on the ground in front, off the crossbar, off the giveaway from Miami. Nearly the opener for Tampa Bay.
Now look where it starts, too. It starts from that high line of pressure coming from Leo Fernandez on the front line. Great read here by Connor Antley. Actually comes to the inside, recognizes the fact that if this ball is going to come out, it's going to go one of two places. Long up over the top, Lawrence Wyke is there, or they're going to try and cut it into one of the sixes. It's cut off and almost slays the Dragon 10 minutes in. Really well done by the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Unfortunate that they're not able to capitalize on it. But to your point about the comments from Anthony Pulis, everybody looks at what Lewis Hilton has done for the Rowdies. He becomes sort of a cult hero. It didn't start here, respectfully. And it started as manager a couple of years ago. And Mike Jeffries and the Charlotte Independents. High praise coming out of Young Harris.
Here's Antley again, rolling it along. Still alive for Tampa Bay. It's deflected wide.
They don't want to allow us to talk about it,
Not
do they?
at all.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Jake LaCava coming all the way over. This is something else that we didn't have the ability to highlight just because of time, is the recognition by this front three. Now, we know Kyle Gregg is going to stay central, be the point man, play off of him from aerial threats, but LaCava and Fernandez on the interchange, they also like to pair up with each other on the same exact side. So it creates that 2v3, 3v2 type mismatch that you're looking for when you start to get into the 10 and 15-yard range.
Worked off the corner, and they'll try it again. Well, it's typically been Miami this season in matches starting quickly. We showed you right off the top 5-1 and 2 when scoring first, and they've done so typically in the first 15 minutes of matches. Well, the first 15 minutes here, Miami just hoping to at least keep it at zeros. We'll eventually get to Lewis Hilton. Curled in, and Sparrow punches away, only as far as Wyke. Wyke, the diagonal right over the top, taken down by LaCava. Right idea, looking for Gregg.
He saw it the whole way, didn't he, Jake LaCava? Kyle Gregg a little bit slow to recognize the fact that this ball was going to be laid off to him. And if we can put a bow on the Lewis Hilton story, if these boys will allow us to, let's just say this. Consummate professional. He would have done anything that he could have to bring him to Miami, and he tried. But the recognition on both sides of the ball and admiration for Lewis Hilton, dead ball specialist, his ability to lock down the space on the inside, a distributor at a high rate in terms of efficiency in that 6-8 type role. They've actually employed him a little bit differently this season, where he's dropped more underneath as a single pivot. You'll see Jan Eckert jump in front of him. Now, some of that is dictated based upon happenstance, right? It's injuries and rotation and trying to find a way to make sure that they're very effective. But it also gives you further depth within the midfield, which creates more balance and their ability to move from point A to point B much quicker. And that's the name of the game. And they've certainly done that over the last 4. 10 goals for and only 3 against for the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Just want to point out that as soon as you said Lewis Hilton's name again last time, Miami turned it over in their own third again. So at this point, Lewis Hilton, I guess, is Miami's Beetlejuice. Just don't say the name and stay out of that harm's way.
Well, how about Anthony Pulis? he just, if you could have put it on a plaque, right, and bronzed it, that's what you would have done, because his words were so kind and full of so much praise. And yet on the back end of it, he said, obviously, I hope he has a blinder and doesn't play well against us.
Here's Gregg. LaCava calling for it on the near side. It's pushed onward by Fernandez. LaCava still wants it. Leo hits it. Seemed like last year, just the way things were in terms of the lineup for Tampa Bay, again, reworked a little bit this year. Fernandez got caught up as a left wing back, and the addition of Jake Arman on that left side has kind of allowed them to stray away from that and push him further up the field and have this duo right now with LaCava that's been so successful.
Well, within his time over the past couple of seasons, of course, the Rowdies have come to love him on that left-hand side, but you do get so much more, especially given the current status of the squad out of Fernandez on that front line. You get everybody healthy, and depth is no longer an issue for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Can make the same argument last year, but even going into the playoffs, they had to deal with some of that, and immediately out of the gate, center back spot.
Parks turns it on to Ba. Ba's shot is just wide.
Speaking of center back spot, right on cue, it's the step out here. You have to have a real calming disposition to make sure that if you're going to go, you got to win this thing. And also recognize that Jordan Scarlett's sitting on a yellow card. He comes that high out, it does two things. A, it puts more pressure on the two defenders around him, Q Lawrence Wyke and Aaron Gannon. This time, Wyke was out of position. He came high, not recognizing the fact that Jordan Scarlett was going to step. Some of that change that we talked about, where Wyke will come central or Scarlett will go to outside, if the communication is not absolutely perfect, those are the situations that you just saw play out in front of you that will benefit Miami. They've got to make sure that they are picture perfect when they're throwing words back and forth.
Here's Arman. One by Sordo. And now Perez. Looking for Parks. And Scarlett's taken down. Not a bad ball forward from Perez. Knowing Scarlett has to still be careful with that yellow. Parks went right after him. It was Parks over aggressive, committing the foul that time. Well, Tampa Bay's gotten out of the first 15 minutes at least. That's where Miami has scored 5 times this season, and 5-1 and 2 when scoring first.
Everything is on the outside right now for both of these teams, though. It's a good balance for the Rowdies left and right respectively when they attack, but for Miami FC, they're just basically down the right flank to Josh Perez. There's that little pinch that I talk about where Lewis Hilton comes underneath. Watch when they go in transition as to whether or not they're willing to attack with numbers, because right now they're basically just sitting on the front three unless they maintain the ball and move high.
Fernandez.
So as they come, Joe, if they progress forward in possession, they'll move as one unit. But if you watch in transition, they're basically just allowing LaCava, Kyle Gregg, and Fernandez to run on their own. And the fear is that if they don't go quick enough or they overcommit with Jan Ecker and Lewis Hilton in the midfield, they're going to get bypassed immediately because of the amount of numbers that Miami FC are leaving forward.
You know, Collins has been happy with the defensive performances of late, with the way the unit is working. That clean sheet they had in the last match against Louisville was actually their first one since a 0-0 draw against the Oakland Roots way back at the beginning of April. But just because they haven't gotten the clean sheets doesn't mean he hasn't been happy with the defensive performances. Felt that the games against Tulsa and Pittsburgh deserved to be clean sheets or close to it. And those two games showed how close they were defensively. Contact here from Scarlett. He and Parks battling it out again. Scarlett again, remember, on that yellow, has to be extremely careful. This time had to be doubly careful, not only with the card, but also be mindful of being close to committing a penalty.
Well, the hands extended away from the body as they start to go the other direction. That yellow card in the 3rd minute for one center back turns to a yellow card for Callan Chapman-Page on the other side. Watch the arms extended away from the body. A couple of times we've seen this so far, challenging the center right here. Yeah, there's not enough in it for me. There's definitive contact for sure, and I think people at home might say, well, if he touched him, why not blow a foul? The other side of that is it's overly accentuated by Romeo Parks. He's looking for the contact on that back shoulder, so it is a bit soft. I don't mind the referee not stepping in there and pointing to the spot.
Miami now having to defend a third corner in just 20 minutes. Neither of the first two yielded anything too dangerous. Armin, nice, off the training ground. Hilton hits it.
What are the odds when the ball falls to Lewis Hilton that he's not able to put it on frame? Really quickly done to get this thing right through the center of it. Surprised that Miami FC didn't step out and attack quicker on the defensive front. And to your point earlier about some of the performances by Miami FC, I mentioned the recognition and respect that they've gotten both on the field and behind the scenes from their peers. This is one of those ones where you look at it and go, they're just off a little bit, right? You can tell that some of the balls that are being played in aren't as crisp as previous games. I will say that that left side is lacking with Christian Sorto. He and Josh Perez did really well for themselves, but they were matched up together on the left flank last time out. This time, Sorto in front of Othello Ba, and they just haven't really been able to link up together at all.
Anthony Pulis didn't make any sort of excuse, but he did address the fact that it's the second time in the last 3 weeks that they've had a midweek turnaround in 3 games in 7 days, and felt that it was starting to maybe catch up a bit with the players. Was looking forward to this next stretch where things go back to a once a week on Saturdays, as they'll have to defend another corner here. And he mentioned it with particular regard to some of their finishing in the attacking third, that it's just been a lot of recovery and video sessions, and they haven't been able to fine-tune some things. So you wonder if that's something that creeps into the equation if they don't look as crisp as they typically do on a night like this. Hilton again goes to the top of the box on the corner. Wyke off the chest of Velo.
Thank God that thing didn't hit the frame. It would have broke the net. Dear Lord, did he smack the heck out of it.
I'm surprised that Velo just took that and stayed on his feet. I was expecting him to double over, wind knocked out of him, something. All Tampa Bay in the early going here. Nearly 60% of the ball. 5 shot attempts already. Here's Armin. Some pressure closing in from Perez, and all the way back now to CJ Cochran. Part of the rotation on the backside for Tampa Bay in terms of their shifting around the center backs, necessitated by no more Forrest Lasso, no more Evan Loro as their linchpins at the back. But Cochran, a more than adequate USL Championship goalie himself, and seeming like they're finding their way now on that back line. Ekra steps through and drew the foul.
This is okay. Now we're starting to get an idea about the way the game's going to be called. As a player, you may not like it, but you have to recognize that the reins are being reeled in here, because this is a really good move to start off by Jan Ecker, the touch in a negative space. And this didn't look like initially Bolo Akinyoti picked up a touch on him. I don't see it there either, because the right foot of Jan Ecker continues forward, doesn't actually pick up a knock. Florian Velo maybe have an argument after the fact that he just knocks it away. Bit soft.
Wyke. Already the third yellow card in 23 minutes issued by Elvis Osmanovic. You just start to grow a little bit concerned that yellow cards of that quantity early on might lead to a red somewhere down the line and drastically impact this game. Already Scarlett's been involved in 2 really tight tackle attempts after that yellow card for the handball.
I don't know about that.
And whenever the hold up here, it's not sitting well with Aiden Stanley. He just wants to put the ball back in play. Armin collides. Are we going to get a 4th yellow already in the game? That's what Velo is arguing here. That yellows were given for less than that tackle there from Armin.
The shout from the sideline and Anthony Pulis, how is that not a yellow? And again, if you're going to call a game a certain way, just be consistent. Very light on the other 2 fouls where the referee did brandish a yellow card. This time, Jake Armin, it's a foul, we understand that. But if you're going to give one over there, why not stay consistent and give it here? This is where as a player you get frustrated because you don't know what you can get away with, right? How much leeway are you actually going to give me? Contact, am I able to administer into my challenges? Everybody starts looking around going, well, there's this tackle there and this tackle here. And there's no fluidity within the referee's decisions.
Nobody on that left side guarding Ba. Now Velo. Right back to square one where the free kick was. Stanley again looking for Ba. And now for a goal kick. Celebrating its 75th anniversary, Select is proud to be the official basketball supplier of USL Championship. Choose what you play with at www.selectsportamerica.com. Select, League's Choice, Player's Choice. Fernandez got it along. Iofemu. Iofemu has really impressed Anthony Pulis this year. And chatting with him a couple of weeks ago ahead of the Charleston match, he pointed to Benofemu as a player on the roster who they didn't necessarily expect to get a lot from this year, but with all the injuries they've had along the back line, Benofemu's had the opportunity and he's just run with it, finding a new level to his game. Here's Perez. Continues to take his space, spots Sordo. Got the wrong weight on the pass. I think the comment that has lingered so far for Miami this season is from their own goal line, the next 80 yards, it's been there. Those final 20 yards, not quite. And through about a half an hour, it's seeming like that's cropping up again.
You know, at some point in time, you would imagine that somebody is going to produce. And you're hoping that one of those somebodies is either Romeo Parks or the resurgence of form we saw in 2021 from Kyle Murphy and 901 FC. I think you have to have the understanding, though, it's probably unfair. It's not probably, it's unfair to think that Kyle Murphy was going to come out and score 20, 25 goals. The realistic expectation should probably be somewhere between 10 and 15 because of the fact that you've seen similar type numbers over previous years. I mean, of course, last year with 901 FC, we saw it with Loudon. You know, Rowdies certainly didn't see the goals from him, but the work ethic for sure. And then prior, his time at RGV. But they've got to have supplementation somewhere else. And when one doesn't do it, okay, but then the second one doesn't do it. And you can't rely on goals regularly from Christian Sorto, Othello Ba, Josh Perez, and think that you're going to be able to find success long-term in the championship, and specifically within the Eastern Conference, because how good defensively all these teams are. You just stick with them, continue to apply confidence. At least that's the idea behind Anthony Pulis. Some managers, Joe, will run you into the ground and beat you up about it. He doesn't feel that way. He feels the stigma behind it has to be continue to apply the process, stay positive, and make sure they have quality mindset. He actually went on to say that he'd be more concerned overall if the opportunities weren't being created, and that's not the case. They are getting there, they're just not finishing.
And that goes back to his whole bit about not really being able to change much right now despite the lack of victories and all the ties. The second he goes to change one thing, he might spring a leak elsewhere, and he doesn't want to mess with what's actually working. They know what's wrong. It's just the finishing. They're creating chances, the quantity and the quality. It's just a matter of hitting the target. Below, after putting in 4 against Charleston, he was hoping that would be the springboard they needed, and that just turned into 3 more draws since then. But within each of those 3 draws, happy overall, again, with the performances, playing against difficult teams. Here's Perez, hits it himself! That would have been a way to find the target.
To go along with the point we were just making about the attack-minded Miami FC and creating opportunities, this is what happens when the previous timeout, you're not linked up with one of your teammates, because this is a beautiful run by Josh Perez. You could almost expect him to lay this off into the space for Christian Sorto. As Connor Antley comes back in and tries to help out Lawrence White, there's a ton of space on that outside flank. But previously the run was wrong, so instead Josh Perez continues to go it alone and almost gets the opening goal.
Flag stays down, LaCava has the help of Armin. Ekra. Hilton along for White. Now Antley. Those last 3 games for Miami, Anthony Pulis unhappy with the way they blew a couple of leads on separate occasions against Pittsburgh, but strong showing overall. Tulsa said it was a difficult place to go and play, but overall happy with the way they play. And then Indy, again, happy with the performance and just felt they were unlucky at times, including with the weather, the way that affected the match. So again, it's week after week where the performances are there, but he knows at some point the performances have to yield the results that they're looking for in a very tight Eastern Conference. And now they're tasked with defending a free kick from a wide area.
This is where it gets really difficult for a defender of Miami FC as well, when the Rowdies start to establish dominance when you're within your own half. This is the high line that I talk about. They maintain possession, and it's almost impossible at times, Joe, to play out of the back. The second that you get a window and try and knock it out, the next thing you know, Guillen, Scarlett, White, Lewis Hilton, all willing to step up and collect because they're 40, 45 yards from your own net. They do such a good job after moving in transition of resetting their lines and then applying pressure on the other end.
Hilton or Armin. Cross or shot. It's Hilton, it's a cross, and it's in the back of the net. Well worked by Tampa Bay. There were a couple of bodies there. Whoever will get credit for it has just put Tampa Bay ahead by 1.
Lewis Hilton was calling for the movement. Kyle Gregg starts to come back over. But one of the best set-piece deliveries you can get in the championship is, in fact, from Lewis Hilton. Any coach will tell you it actually comes off the holding midfielder, 21, Bolu Akinyoti. He's trying to get out in front of the trailing runs of Kyle Gregg and Fernandez, but on the redirect, the touch just sets itself home inside that near post in front of Connor Sparrow to give the visitors the lead. You have to feel for Miami FC in a situation like that, but it's been coming. The better of opportunities have come from the Rowdies. They have been on the front foot. They haven't created a ton, but they have been the aggressor, and they finally got their lead.
Officially down as a Bolu Akinyoti own goal in the 33rd minute. All sorts of chaos in front. Took me at least a couple of replays to figure out who it finally came off of. Everybody loves the flashy free kick that goes directly in when you're somewhere outside the semicircle, but so often that one right there is the toughest to deal with. If you have a good deliverer of the ball and he puts that low with pace to the front post, or he puts it toward the back post, as you'll so often see where it'll just go in on its own without a touch, it's so difficult for a keeper to defend and for a back line to defend. Now with 10 to go in the half, Miami playing comeback. Five, 1, and 2 when scoring first this year. This time they'll have to battle back.
There's a good look in the far end. There used to be a caravan, and they certainly carried that in tonight from Ralph's Mob and the Skyway Casuals on the road to support the Rowdies. And you can hear the shouts from the sideline. If not, I'm happy to translate. It's simple. And he wants them to start moving the ball more efficiently on the deck. They've taken a lot of chances unnecessarily. That ball just a second ago sprayed to the opposite end. They're having trouble moving through the middle again. Really good job by Jan Ekra and Lewis Hilton, but I would also say it's the cutoff pass that you're getting in the removal of LaCava and Fernandez, who are pretty much taking away Florian Velo and Akinyoti in the buildup. When you can't come to the inside, you then can't compress the opposition, and it makes it that much more difficult to play around it, Joe, because the marks are already there. You look to the interior, it's off. Everybody knows the next ball, just like this, is going to be the outside. So unless you can find that line-breaking pass right there, everything has been out on the wings.
McFarland. And this is where you're in trouble if Tampa Bay is clicking the way we have seen them lately defensively. If they get a one-goal lead, they can absolutely lock it down. Just ask Louisville from last weekend. Boys in purple held without a shot on target in the match. In just the second half, it seemed like Tampa Bay was first to every ball, closing down every passing lane. You don't really want to go behind against any team ever. That's the whole object of the game, but especially against this Tampa Bay team, the way they can lock it down.
It's a nice Maddenism out of you right there.
Strong step by Chapman Page. He'll take the space himself, taken down.
Card.
So now Ekra joins the yellow card party.
This one's not easy to dispute, is it? I should say it is very easy to dispute, excuse me. Great step by Callan Chapman Page, by the way. I mentioned a second ago trying to find that ball that will get into the seams. You can do it yourself sometimes too. Break that initial line of pressure as you step up through. You're going to drag runners with you. Could have been Jake LaCava. This time around, it's Jan Ekra trying to play catch up. He can't. He goes into the book as well. The referee has certainly been generous with the yellow cards this first half, hasn't he?
Below, Chapman Page, Scarlett, and Ekra. At least it's down the middle, 2-2.
They've really struggled from an aerial threat this year. You would think that you'd try and move it around it, but the left footer of Aiden Stanley from this distance, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he tries to have a go. 39 minutes in, you haven't gotten a lot of opportunities to really challenge CJ Cochran. it's that gray area to keep a goalkeeper on his toes. Either that or they get a little trickery and go around it.
Lofts it toward the top of the 6 and not far away from a touch. The outstretched left leg. Armin plays through the press. Ekra sending LaCava. Chapman Page did enough to win it. And Miami still doesn't have a shot on target, so as I mentioned before, Louisville held without a shot on target in the last match. So Tampa Bay is on quite the run defensively right now. Now in the match prior, they were up 1-0 on FC Tulsa. Rodrigo da Costa scored in the 83rd. Those two teams to split the points on that day. This is 3 matches in a row now that Tampa Bay has gotten out to that 1-0 lead. It seemed like they were going to nurse it all the way against Tulsa. They did against Louisville. And now here again, just not much from Miami. McFarland. And if they can't muster one in the next 5 minutes, that'll be 3 consecutive halves of soccer in which Tampa Bay Rowdies have not allowed a shot on frame.
Have you seen the scores, by the way, around the league tonight?
I haven't taken a glance at it yet, but you're about to enlighten me.
I'm going to tell you, Patino, which, I mean, there's plenty of time left, 83rd minute. Santiago Patino in his return to San Antonio. They're now up 3-2 against Monterey Bay, at Monterey Bay. 2 own goals in that game. The Charleston Battery, sit down, are up 2-0 on the Riverhounds.
Seriously?
I mean, good for them. Good for Connor Casey and what hopes to be his return to the sideline. And just 10 minutes in, Sacramento Republic, a 1-0 lead on Detroit City at the Key.
They're going to send Truly Nolan top of your screen there after me. I sounded like a mouse in my response.
Seriously? Oh, boy.
White. Armin and Guillen go back and forth. Just very methodical from Tampa Bay. They're not looking for the quick strike. They're content to play with it. If it's there, playing through the lines to LaCava or Fernandez, they'll take it, but especially with a 1-goal lead, they'll just do this as much as you allow them.
Well, what's interesting is the trend throughout the first half so far has been if they are to utilize anybody on that front line. Jake LaCava actually playing a bit further. That's a good look. He's playing further on the left than normal, and Jake Armin's coming deeper, almost as an outside back at times, and yet it's very different on the right-hand side. Leo Fernandez has come more to the interior, and Connor Antley has come higher on cue. It creates that overload that I talk about. You got a nice little triangle to play off of. Hilton underneath, and then Fernandez and Jan Ekra. Little 1-2-3, yet you still maintain the balance down in the channels if you want to try and attack that way. It's a stark difference than what we've seen out of Miami FC. And then to my point, right around the 30-minute mark, this is where you get yourself into the most trouble if you're the home squad. Because not only are they dancing on the ball, they're very dangerous into the territory. And if there's a turnover, look at how many jerseys are around you that pressure you to play out of the back. It's extremely difficult.
Just circling back to your point as far as the scores around the league, we mentioned it coming on the air how tight things were. 3rd place down to 8th place, separated by just 4 points. Sacramento is up 1-0 on the road against Detroit. Charleston up 2-0 at home against Pittsburgh. That would, in the live table, with Tampa Bay leading, bring them all the way up to third place. They'd be a point clear of Detroit and 2 clear of Pittsburgh. Seen the whole way by Cochran for the first shot on target in about 136 minutes against Tampa Bay.
Someone asked me an interesting question the other day, and they said, who's the best team in the championship? And I kind of paused for a second, and it's the first time in my mind that I can remember responding in this nature in my tenure in the league. I don't think there is one. You could make an argument for a couple of teams for sure.
LaCava trying to make Tampa Bay's argument that much better, but he's denied by Sparrow. For a corner.
I love the one-on-ones that you get with Jake LaCava. This guy just doesn't lack for confidence. Look at him, head up the entire time. This is vintage. This is everything you want from a scouting report, deflection or not. 1v2, 1v3, he does not care. He's got the pace, the physical attributes, the ability to beat you at any point in time. Magnificent bit of business for the Tampa Bay Rowdies getting him on loan this year.
Can it be vintage of a player if that player is only 21 years of age?
Absolutely. Given the fact that we've already seen him for approaching 3 full seasons, right?
There are vintage wines older than he is. Whipped in from the corner.
Not in my house. Anything's drinkable. But I mentioned, look, we're going to go into the dressing room here, and you have an idea of what's going on, right? The fact that, Tampa Bay Rowdies have definitely been better. There's a lack of creativity for Miami FC. They don't have enough balance on the inside. That's all going to be said by Anthony Pulis. They got to find a way to get Akinyoti and Florian Velo so they can challenge the shape of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, because that's exactly what's been done by the visitors. But to my point a second ago, in previous years, Rowdies have gone on these unbeaten runs. Louisville has been right there with everybody. Pittsburgh and their runs. You can make the same argument in the Western Conference. San Antonio, Phoenix Rising, El Paso Locomotive. I feel like we don't have that. And the parity has actually created a level that has started to raise everybody just up a notch. And the coaches have acknowledged that and said, every single time we step onto the pitch, there's no more easy games. It's a fight for our lives each and every week.
Absolutely. Not much separating any teams in either conference. Not much separating these two teams. Miami in the first meeting at the beginning of April took down Tampa Bay 1-0. It's the same scoreline, but it's reversed as Tampa Bay looks for its vengeance. We're back in just a few moments with half number 2 from Ricardo Silva Stadium.
determined.
I am a dreamer.
I am a Jamaican.
I am Peruano.
I am Italian.
I am relentless.
I am an animal.
I am French.
I am a Get the Diamond. I am resilient.
At the break between Miami and Tampa Bay, a 1-0 lead for the Rowdies. This week, Devin Kerr and Mike Watts, they decided to set Twitter aflame a bit with their top 5 USL Championship players of all time.
Leading scorer, Dane Kelly's easy. He's played for so many teams, accomplished so much, 105 goals. Forrest Lasso, you keep winning Defensive Player of the Year. At some point, you have to be considered the best defender in league history. King Kenny, no one has more assists. He won a title in Rochester. They pulled him out of the Arena League, and Bob Lilly has turned him into his chief commander. Cameron Lancaster, 25 goals. You might say, what about Haji Berry? Well, Cam's done it longer, and he's done it on title-winning teams. And, of course, for Indy 11 now, but most of his accomplishment, except for the 3 assists this year, in Phoenix. So Solo, twice an MVP, has to be there. I left out a ton of good players. It didn't feel right, but you made me pick 5. All right, Dev. This was all on SiriusXM FC earlier in the week. But we're going to talk about it anyways. Your top 5 of all time.
All right, so I share some of the same sentiments for Dane Kelly, Canardo Forbes, and Solomon Asante. It's length of time, the quality, the systems, the coaches they've played under, and the interchangeability with and all of that. My 2 other guys, George Davis IV. Here's why. George Davis IV, 242 regular season appearances. That's first all time. 57 goals. That's tied for 10th all time. And we'll sprinkle in 19 assists. No matter if he was in Louisville, if he was the star in Richmond, in the 9, the 7, the 11, he did everything asked upon him, and now he's making waves at the academy level and beyond for Lou City. On and off the field, great character for that guy. Evan Newton, you can't talk about a goalkeeper that's first in saves in the USL Championship, that first in shutouts, and not include him as one of the all-time greats. You and I talk about him all the time, that he is undervalued within this league. He has been great at every single stop that he has been at. And I'll say this as well, he's been pummeled in a lot of situations, and yet every single time steps up, knocks it out of the park, and makes his team relevant defensively.
We all have goals. But let's be honest, most of us aren't going to be professional athletes. But if your goal is to finish your degree, we can help. Come to a university that puts your goals first. Bellevue University, your partner in finishing goals.
I'm on that routine. I'm on that routine.
In the making, a dream start for City.
Maxi Rodriguez, what a stop by Steinwasser.
And it's into the back of the net. El Paso
so far corner and it's in. What a goal! Are you watching Football Americas?
Still at the interval between Miami and Tampa Bay, 1-0 lead for the Rowdies, and we will leave Ricardo Silva Stadium for a moment to take a look around the league with some news and notes here in USL Championship. That kid wants to cheer for a goal tonight for Miami. I can sense it, but he can also go to that link to learn more about what USL is doing during June. And then Memphis, they keep going. Player of the month, coach of the month. They continue their run to the top of the Eastern Conference standings, and Detroit City hosts El Paso Locomotive this coming week at noon on ESPN. Devin, in some alternate universe, I promise you I'm a ladle because I enjoy stirring pots. This wasn't in the rundown, but I wanted to get the power rankings in there just for you this week to see if it would set you off at all.
Okay, let's take a look. Detroit, no. I would. So here's the thing about power rankings, which I've come to understand. It's about how they're playing now, which I get. I can give the favoritism towards New Mexico United, the Rowdies, Colorado Springs, 901 FC for sure. Detroit still, I know their fan base is going to hate me for saying this, still haven't beaten anybody above the playoff line. They're currently losing to Sacramento Republic. I would actually make the argument that in terms of power rankings, Louisville should probably be lower. 4 losses out of the last 5 in all competitions. Has not been good at all. And I might make the argument that it's the opposition that they've done it against too, because they've really struggled against teams that they should beat. You know, Los Dos were in there, Monterey Bay for sure. I mean, still plenty to play for, but hasn't been great for them recently.
Here's the upcoming schedule for the rest of the evening as some of these teams hope to climb up the power rankings ahead of next week. I know the Oakland Roots made a big jump, and they're sitting there in 12th place at the moment in the power rankings. Phoenix and El Paso should be an interesting one tonight out west. And a look at the current scores from around USL Championship. We touched on it. Charleston Battery 2, Pittsburgh nothing when we were still in our first half. That has since changed to 3-0.
Dear Lord. Oh, my God. Bob Lilly is going to go nuts at halftime. Augustine Williams, Andrew Booth, and Romario Piggott. What a response for Connors Casey's squad, who has 1 win on the season. That is drastically needed. Friendly reminder, we played 90 minutes in this game. Still a half to go there.
And still a half to go here. Tampa Bay 1, Miami nothing. It was the reverse scoreline in the first fixture between these teams this year in Tampa Bay. And now the Rowdies trying to return the favor with a win on the road in Miami. We're back in just a few with the final 45.
I am determined.
I am a dreamer.
I am a Jamaican.
I am Peruano.
I am Italian.
I am relentless.
I am an animal.
I am French.
I get the diamond. I am resilient.
players trickling back out onto the field as we're almost ready to begin half number 2 between Miami and Tampa Bay. But before we begin the second, we're going to take a look back at the highlights from half number 1. It was an early barrage from Tampa Bay. Miami found its footing midway through that first half, and then as the match went along, it was Tampa Bay again finding their way.
We've got a lot of acknowledgement over the years to the defensive shape of the Rowdies, but watch how high the line of pressure is. Great recognition by Connor Antley. Talked about in the broadcast, this ball is going to go 1 of 2 spots, right down the middle or long up over the top. It hits that gray area that Connor Antley steps into, and then they go to work. They're not able to get paydirt off of it, but it's an excellent start for the Rowdies. You would get a response almost immediately 5 minutes later from Miami FC. Watch the way that they build off of this, because you wanted this ball to come sooner. Instead, it's a little bit late in. As the ball finally makes its way back to the outside off of Romeo Parks, it's a strike from distance. They go back to work. 17 minutes passes, and then Josh Perez. 90 seconds prior, Sorto didn't make the run. He tried to give it to him. This time around, keeps it alone. 25 yards out, cracks it up over the bar.
And then a dread free kick from out wide. Is it going to be near post, far post, shot, cross? What's it going to be? It ends up as a goal off of Akinyoti.
You hit the nail on the head, though, Joe, because you're absolutely right. Swing this in and put it in the danger area. There are so many bodies that can be a cause of concern for a goalkeeper. Connor Sparrow doesn't know where to track and gets a bit unfortunate because the ever-steady Bolu Akinyoti redirects this into his net. And I mentioned how good Jake LaCava is in transition. Just watch him absolutely annihilate the 1v2. Gets a little of a bounce off, tries to go to the far post. Good response by Connor Sparrow to keep it at 1-0.
Halftime highlights were brought to you by Hellbiz Live. And halftime as a whole was brought to you by Macron. Shop the new 305 and La Ciudad Macron kits at MiamiFC.com. The stats from half number 1, I'd say they paint the picture. Everything kind of going the Rowdies' way by just a bit, and it reflects that on the scoreboard.
We get some fun tools to play with behind the scenes, Joe, and one of them that's not going to show up on the screen that I'm going to verbal here is the average position for each player on the field, specifically Miami FC. As we're talking right now, 9 out of the 11 are pinned within their own half. That gives you an idea of not only the amount of possession that the Rowdies have had, but the location on the field. It's very high. They've been able to dictate the tempo, or lack thereof at times, because they've taken the sting out of the game. You mentioned how patient they are. That's also the brilliance of them. There's a versatility side of it that when they're paired together with that patience, they can go A to B really quick. They can also kill the game out and then spring on you. It's very difficult to defend.
To piggyback off of that, one of those further advanced stats that stuck out to me, Miami only has 3 touches in the opposing 18-yard box, 7 for Tampa Bay. Miami just not finding that space in behind. They want to give their fans something to get up out of their chairs about as this match goes along, and we're going to have a sub here right out of the gates. Jordan Scarlett out, Sebastian Dahlgaard in. And then Segber's coming in on the other side. That's Sion McFarland out of the match for Mark Segbers. Ready to get half number 2 going. Miami from right to left in the blue. Tampa Bay from left to right in the neon. We're underway.
Your attention, please. Substitutions at halftime. First for the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
That Scarlet substitution, perhaps equal parts yellow card, and was involved in a couple of challenges as the half went on. And we received word he is heading off to national team this evening, so maybe a bit of both in the works there.
I would also say the performance just a bit under par in terms of the overall quality for Jordan Scarlett, but he has received the call for the Reggae Boys and an opportunity to join the team after tonight.
Dahlgaard looking through. How does Dahlgaard coming in change things at the back for Tampa Bay? You touched on it early in the match that they can just morph any way they please on that back line.
And for them, it's pretty simple. They'll bring Sebastian Dahlgaard onto that right flank, and Connor Antley will drop into where Jordan Scarlett is. High praise from Neil Collins, talking about just the calming disposition that you get out of Connor Antley. Nothing too fancy. He doesn't try and push the envelope, just one foot in front of the other, and goes out and does a professional job.
LaCava weaves through, taken down. Penalty. And a yellow as well for Othello Ba.
Well, the argument here is that he hits the ground. This looked to be complete contact, but down into the pocket. Most of this came from Fernandez in the first half. This time, Jake LaCava just decimating the back line. As he drops in, left or right, pick your poison. And the explosion of speed, Aiden Stanley gets caught flat-footed here. When you commit as a defender, you come up that high, you only come for one thing, it's to win the ball. Instead, gets caught dead in his tracks. The acceleration by Jake LaCava creates the separation, and then the contact by Othello Ba to point to the spot 12 yards out.
Leo Fernandez converted last week from the spot. He went right down the middle with his penalty in that 1-0 win against Louisville. Fernandez looking for his 4th goal on the year, and he has it. Slots it right into the corner. Sparrow guesses the right way, but with that kind of placement, you are not stopping it. It's 2-0 Tampa Bay.
Start with the penalty itself. Lewis Hilton trying to move this thing quickly the other direction. You challenge the shape here, you come off. Bit of hesitation. Callan Chapman-Page starts to drift in. Ben Ofemo stays deep, and Aiden Stanley finally says, all right, I'll go. Othello Ba recognizes there's way too much space, takes him down, and then in steps Fernandez. His 4th on the season, back-to-back games from the spot. Doesn't always have to be the hardest, certainly doesn't have to be the prettiest. This is just an efficient penalty into the bottom corner to double the lead.
Now it's a very long road back for Miami. It's tough enough finding 1 goal against Tampa Bay when you're down with the way they can tighten things up. Good luck finding 2. And that's the one thing, if there was something to nitpick for Neil Collins these last couple of games. Against Tulsa, they never got the insurance goal. They conceded to make it 1-1. Last week against Louisville, they were able to hold on for that 1-0 win, but there were a couple of threatening opportunities where Louisville all of a sudden could have tied it 1-1. Tonight, not the case. They waste no time in the second half getting that insurance goal.
You could say the same thing in the San Diego Loyal game, right? You grab, they got the opening goal, of course, from Nick Boone, but the response came immediately from LaCava, and they continued to create. They got their lead and almost fell out of the game, right? They didn't necessarily maintain their dominance and just let teams hang around, whether it was Loyal or Tulsa. It's something extremely uncharacteristic historically from the Rowdies, and yet the dominance seems to remain over the past couple of games. Unbeaten in the last 4, 3-0-1, and it seems like the way things are going, unless Anthony Pulis can switch things around here, find a way to get his midfield back in shape and on the ball and control themselves a bit more, that they're going to add tallies to it.
And Neil Collins felt that San Diego match was a big turning point. Said they could easily be sitting here with 4 or 5 more points because they were right there in a lot of games early in the season. But once that San Diego game hit and allowed them to regroup, refocus, and the performances have just been at a different level since then. He actually went as far as saying there are 2 matches he looks at as turning points this year. The first one was that loss a couple of months ago against Miami. Thought they played well in that match despite the loss. From there, they took up their game a couple of notches. A few weeks later, they had the game against San Diego. It takes them to a different level in the aftermath. So 3 stages so far as Tampa Bay has been escalating their performances. And to the rest of the Eastern Conference, you might be officially on notice at this stage that Tampa Bay might be all the way back or close to it. Could they make it 3? Fernandez. On the left side for Armin. Armin. To take a deflection. It did. It'll be a corner.
Well, I can remember last year where that little slump that the Tampa Bay Rowdies experienced early July, lost to Miami FC, lost to Hartford Athletic, Miami FC again. It was a stretch of 3-4 and 4-5. Everybody kind of looked around and went, oh no, they're in trouble. And what did they do? They went off, rattled a ridiculous unbeaten streak, including the North American, you heard that right, North American shutout record that eclipsed the Houston Dynamo of the mid-2000s, 800+ minutes of scoreless football for the Tampa Bay Rowdies and Neil Collins. They're doing just fine.
Each corner they've taken tonight has been something off the training ground. Here again, they go short, and it's driven into the supporters section of the visiting Rowdies. Anthony Pulis was nothing but complimentary of Neil Collins' evolution with Tampa Bay and their evolution as a whole. Noted that it was a difficult situation for Neil Collins initially, taking over mid-season, going from player to head coach, and since then he's really put his stamp on this team. He's brought in players that Anthony Pulis simply described as men. They are going to physically impose themselves. They are going to find a way to win even when they're not at their best, and they're just going to make it difficult to play against them even if they go ahead and lose a given match. And it echoes what Neil Collins was like as a player, but now they're under fire the other way. Can they get a goal back? It's Parks, and he took one touch too many. And then Perez commits the foul to end the threat.
Heck of a ball by Christian Sorto, knocked in behind. Here's the physical side of things as Connor Italy comes over. Almost went down there. He probably could have gone down, to be fair, but he stays on his feet. And as you cut this back across your body, Joe, you're right, you got to hit it. You got to let that ball release. Instead, tries to get it back to the favorited right side, and he recognizes, Romeo Parks, that is a wasted opportunity for Miami FC to claw back within one.
Fans, you can score big at World of Beer around with happy hour every Monday through Friday. Located on the corner of 87th and 36th, the World of Beer is your premier bar and restaurant. With 40 rotating drafts and 300 more in the cooler.
Perez has been involved quite a bit tonight.
World of Beer is your location to watch all Miami FC away matches in 2022.
Just came up lame. You couldn't tell if he rolled his ankle when he tried to come across Lewis Hilton on that little jump right there. I mean, the run itself usually looks like that's something on the backside of the leg, but you can see him a bit lame on the right peg. And it's funny, as a player, that movement, you feel like in your head it's going to work every time. Like, I've got the jump on the play. I know my speed. I can come over the backside of the player. And yet 9 times out of 10, you always make contact. You know, you're chasing the wrong direction and you think, okay, if I just cut back a little bit, I've got the acceleration to then get back in front of them. Never works out the way you want it to, right?
On that cutback, the arms always go in the air, too, because
it wasn't me.
It wasn't me. As you hop over the back, you always make the contact, you always raise the hands, and it always has that inverse effect, right? They raise the hands as if to say, not me, but what it really is doing is raising the hand and saying, look what I just did, and then you call for the foul. Perez is just waiting to be waved back onto the field, and Anthony Pulis is letting his voice be heard that Perez should have already been waved back on. Hilton left because he needed to work on his right cleat. And now it's back to 11 on 11. Approaching halftime, it's still Sacramento 1, Detroit nothing, and 10 minutes into the second half, it's still Charleston 3, Pittsburgh nothing. 2 very favorable results. If you're Tampa Bay, it would leapfrog them all the way into 3rd place, just a point back of Louisville and 2 back of Memphis, although Louisville has a game in hand on Tampa, and Memphis has 2 games in hand on Tampa Bay. Any chance I get to give Memphis some credit this year, I'm going to take it, because what they've done is nothing short of remarkable. The amount of points they have, and to still have games in hand on the pack behind them. Everybody chasing Ben Pierman's boys.
I got a really funny text from him midweek. He doesn't have social media. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did know that, yep.
So he gets Coach of the Month, and I retweeted, congratulations. I've known Ben for a couple of years now, dating back to his time at Michigan State when he was then at the helm of Detroit City as well. And he sent me a text because his wife actually forwarded the tweet to him, and he said, dude, thanks so much. You know, although individual awards aren't my thing, I appreciate the acknowledgement. He goes, I am, however, happy because of the kind praise you gave my shoe game. I said the best shoe game in the biz, and he says, my friends always give me such a hard time when I'm on the sidelines for my outfits. It was nice to receive some praise for what goes on my feet. And I said, yeah, we still got to work on the outfits a little bit, but I'm feeling the shoe game.
What do you think meant more to him, Coach of the Month or the Devin Kerr seal of approval on his shoes?
Oh, no, it was the shoe game. Yeah, if I could jump into his closet, his Jordan game runs strong. Deep into the vault, Ben Pierman does with the Jordans.
USL is committed to supporting the LGBTQ+ community through the Forever Proud project. USL strives to create safe and welcoming environments for all fans, players, employees, and partners. Learn more at uslsoccer.com/foreverproud. Stanley. Here's Parks. Free kick on the way for Miami. If you're going to claw your way back into this game, these are the opportunities you have to find a way to make count. Set piece from out wide. Saw Tampa Bay score on one, not quite from the same spot, but same side of the field on a free kick in the first half. All starts with the service from Stanley. The 22-year-old will have to just wait a couple of moments. Osmanovic comes in for a quick chat. Dalgard and Parks, the two guilty parties. And of course, as soon as they break camp, there's a shove from Parks.
Nobody's bunking together tonight.
Stanley to the back post, not a bad service. Falls for Velo. Wrong side of the netting, fooled some of the fans on the near side of the field. It'll be a corner from the far side of the field.
It's a good job on the second chance here from Florian Velo. Recognizes that he's not going to win that battle at just 5'9". Let the likes of Ben Ofemo and Romeo Parks try and win one of those 50-50s. Anthony Pulis has got to find a way to get Florian Velo on the ball much more. The absent-minded professor that usually is the mastermind for Miami FC. Not on the ball enough here tonight to find success.
Stanley's corner. Velo. And cleared to safety. Clock is about to tick up to an hour. You wonder when the changes might come from Miami to try and stoke something offensively. Murphy, Reed, Walker, some names on the bench. Perez. Here's Velo. Hour gone, half hour to go with Devin Kerr. I'm Joe Malfa. Glad to have you with us on ESPN Plus. Second meeting of the season between Tampa Bay and Miami, and it seems like we were headed toward a season split. Miami took the first one 1-0, and Tampa Bay a commanding 2-0 lead. Own goal against Bolu Akinyoti in the 33rd minute on a terrific delivery on the free kick by Hilton. And then Fernandez right out of the gates at half number 2 from the penalty spot. Here's LaCava trying to make it 3. LaCava cuts, shoots, and puts it just wide.
Well, Miami
Jake LaCava just continuing down the path of individual brilliance. At least that's the attainable goal. This one eludes him for sure. Seb Delgard, good patience, recognizes that with the cutback to the inside, he's closed off his own opportunity. The recovery by Aiden Stanley and Ben Ofemo, top notch. This is where I'd like to see Miami FC take a page out of the Rowdies book. Christian Sordo in the second half has started to continue his movements more to the inside. I mentioned in the game last time out against Indy, there was a really good relationship between he and Josh Perez. They're obviously on opposite sides, but as he comes more to the inside, you're getting a similar type of look as you are in Fernandez cutting in from the right flank for the Rowdies. He comes underneath, creates more of a 10-type role. Othello Bob becomes more advanced in his movements. Yes, you have to be careful in the transitional game, but down 2-0 inside 30 minutes to go, you've got to start to take some chances to get back into this match.
Lucky Mkosana in for Kyle Gregg. We'll see it typically this way from Neil Collins with the way they try to keep those legs fresh up top, making the most of the 5 substitutions. Always tries to get fresh legs up there. Last game against Louisville, actually rotated all 3 of the players on that top line as the game wore on. And on the other side, it's Lamar Walker in and Christian Sordo out.
Leaving the game is number 22, Kyle Gregg. He's replaced by number 77, Lucky Hunt. And the 63rd minute. Substitution for your Miami FC. Leaving the game is number 14, Christian Sordo.
Here's Stanley. Miami finding more time on the ball, but perhaps a product of Tampa Bay just laying off of it. There's no work left to be done for them. They've put 2 in the back of the net. Stanley. Flag stays down. Here's Walker. Overlap from Ba. He goes crossfield instead. Balls for Velo. Akinyoti looks over the shoulder. Sees he's pressured by Mkosana and hits Ba. Now Walker, fronted by Wyke. One back by Walker. Below on the turn. Gets it inside. Chapman Page. Here's Segbers. Forgot the ball. Found it again. Looked like he wanted to hit it with that next touch, and the ball just got caught behind him a little bit. Better from Miami, but still searching for an answer in the final third. Velo cuts it back for Ba to the end line. Ba off the bar and in. That'll do. Othello Ba finds his 3rd goal of the season, and there's life yet for Miami.
He has been the bright spark for Miami FC over the past couple of games. He and Adonai Jarrid out on that left-hand flank have been very constant. Guess where it comes from too? Florian Velo. Gotta find a way to get Velo on the ball more. Good head up. Pick out by Aiden Stanley, and then even better from Florian Velo. He gets down to the byline. He's almost got nowhere to go. And then the inversion by Othello Ba comes all the way back in. Space defensively is really hard to pick up this run, Joe. Credit where it's due for Miami FC on the interchange between those 3 to claw back within 1.
Goal brought to you by Helbiz. Whenever I see a goal like that, the only one that sticks out is San Diego Loyal head coach Landon Donovan in the World Cup against Slovenia. There's nowhere to put that ball except in the roof of the net, and Ba did it. Game on. Sometimes it takes an individual moment of brilliance to wake a team up. They've been sluggish for much of the evening. Hasn't been easy to find chances for Miami. And opponents for Tampa Bay have discovered that over the past couple of games that it's not easy to find chances against them. Dalgard. This game had just gotten into a rhythm where it seemed like Tampa Bay was going to coast to a victory. Miami not finding anything across midfield. That has suddenly changed. Always most vulnerable in the first 5 minutes after conceding. We'll see if Miami can try to double up here with the momentum on their side. Segbers inside, Perez turning, Perez hitting, put it just wide.
Tale of two halves. How about the final 30 minutes here for Miami FC, who have been shot out of a cannon? Ask for more out of Florian Valot. You need more, and implore the creativity from Josh Perez. So dangerous on the inside. You got to be really careful here. The Tampa Bay Rowdies were magnificent for an hour, and now all of a sudden the momentum has swung back to the boys in blue.
Chapman Page gives it away. Toward Mkosana, heads it to himself in space. Mkosana, it stopped trickling toward the line and stays out. Bah. Just over the last couple of years, the spark that Mkosana is able to provide off the bench. Think about the Eastern Conference Final last year, the goals he comes up with to send it to extra time. Is there a better super sub in the league?
No, just you know, I like the eye test as well as the numbers argument, and for the guy that has done it so consistently, Mkosana, most goals coming off the bench in USL Championship history. How about this man in the shift he put in tonight? Jan Ekra becomes the 15th man all-time in USL Championship history to reach 15,000 regular season minutes, spread out across the Harrisburg City Islanders, Charlotte Independence, and since 2019, the Tampa Bay Rowdies. It's a pretty impressive acknowledgement for Jan Ekra and the storied career within the USL Championship.
He's right on the heels of his teammate Kyle Gregg in terms of most appearances. Jan Ekra 6th all-time in appearances. Kyle Gregg 5th all-time in appearances. You wonder if they talk about it in the locker room, if Ekra asks Gregg to take a couple of nights off so he can catch up, but those two right there, they've been part of the fabric of this league for quite some time.
Everybody's probably heard the story before if you're a Tampa Bay Rowdies fan, but if you haven't heard it, or you are a little bit unfamiliar with Jan Ekra and his background if you're a Miami FC fan, you're looking at a guy that coming up through the French national system, roommates with Karim Benzema for a couple of years. That guy's got a pretty good case for the Ballon d'Or this year, excuse me. Hull City, Lyon, Châteauroux, sort of done it everywhere prior to his entrance into North American football in 2012. The pedigree was certainly there, and anybody that you talk to, Mike Jeffries, of course, I mentioned the Charlotte Independence, and Neil Collins, just the professional that you always want in your locker room, linking everybody together, good personality, and grinder day in and day out. Certainly not many a night that you look at Jan Ekra and think he was off.
In my job, I gauge so much in a given game as to how many times I say a guy's name. and I almost never say his name just because he's so quietly collected in the middle of the field, and that's just his trademark. He's always going to be there. He's always going to put in a great shift, never going to do anything wrong. He'll have the occasional incredibly bright moment, but just always there for Tampa Bay.
You can make the argument for some players that's what depends on the system that they're in, but not for Jan Ekra. He's kind of been like that at every stop he's been.
Tampa Bay looking to restore the 2-goal lead. Flag stays down, LaCava working with it.
Fans, make your next event unforgettable and book the one and only Golazo. South Florida's favorite Kingfisher is available for birthdays, festivals, schools, assemblies, and youth sports functions and more. For rates and availability, call 844-MIAMI-FC or
Walker
info@MiamiFC.com.
Along to Segbers, back for Walker. Parks, ball inside, Segbers, Perez trying to recover to Parks. Puts it 3 rows deep.
There's a shot of some of the other boys. That was Paco Craig, injured center back for Miami FC, up in the stands and just frustrated because you got to hit the frame here. Great job by Josh Perez to stop, plant his foot in the ground and pivot this back over the right shoulder for Romeo Parks. With the chances that he's had tonight, Joe, you have to imagine that someone like Kyle Murphy laying and waiting to come on and try and find an equalizer.
They are prepared to make a change, Miami. Junior Palacios getting ready. Parks does have 3 goals on the season, but if you go through the footage and find all the opportunities he's had, you could argue he should have plenty more, and that's what Anthony Pulis talked about. And you alluded to it earlier, Devin. He's at least pleased with the way that Parks and Murphy are finding the space, finding the chances, but at some point they have to start hitting the net. And now Kyle Murphy is getting ready as well. Might have a double change coming up here from Miami. Chapman Page. Segbers tried to tiptoe the line to stay on, and he did not do so.
So 4 and 27. 4 and 27.
Junior Palacios for Callum Chapman Page. Kyle Murphy for Romeo Parks.
Leading the game is number 4, Callum Chapman Page. He's replaced by number 18, Junior Palacios. And leading the game is number 27, Romeo Parks. He's replaced by number 9, Kyle Murphy. In the 74th minute.
Elsewhere, Detroit still trailing Sacramento. And it's a USL and ESPN matinee involving Detroit when 2 surging sides meet in the Motor City. El Paso Locomotive FC and Detroit City FC, Saturday, June 18th at noon Eastern on ESPN.
Well, that should be a fun one tonight for El Paso against Phoenix.
10:30 Eastern time kickoff between 2 teams you typically expect to see in some order 1 and 2 in the Western Conference, but
it's not the case this year, is it?
Not at all.
Rising perfect against them, and all of the matchup: 4 wins, 4 victories, 4 matches.
Fernandez to
Beautiful.
LaCava. LaCava is denied by Sparrow. Flipped on by Armin, and Sparrow is there again. What a stop by Connor Sparrow to keep his side in the match. Again, it was Fernandez and LaCava making magic in the box.
Just start with the pressure that comes. We saw this from Connor Antley. This time it's Seb Dalgard. He pushes him into a corner, and there's that ball out. Remember, it's going to be longer. It's going to be down the middle. Fernandez just trailing behind, and here's the 1-2 punch. How does Jake LaCava not finish? You can't blame him. This is just great goalkeeping and a recovery effort by Connor Sparrow to give themselves a fighting chance.
Walker gets beyond Van Kazeel. Still Walker. Akinyoti. Murphy to Segbers. Perez. Space for Ba. The goal scorer on the ground across by a half step. Segbers too slow.
Just watch the right side of this back line for the Rowdies. With the addition of Thomas Van Kazeel onto the back line, he comes over that right shoulder for Connor Antley. He's only ever experienced, Joe, the right side of the back line within a 4-back system. He doesn't normally play on the right. We saw it a lot for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. He was the center of the 3, or when they played in a 4-5-1, 4-3-3, what have you, he could start to pinch to the right, but he was never the outside right of that 3, so he's out of position just a tiny touch. He's got plenty of versatility within it, but as he comes in there, Seb Dalgard was over on the outside. You've also moved Lawrence Wyke up into the midfield. There's been a lot of change for the Rowdies over the past 15 minutes, and within that, the confidence just continues to grow for Miami FC.
Expound on that a little bit. Van Kazeel, he's over, what, 10 yards to his left? To the layperson, how big of a difference does that make?
It all depends on how many numbers you're trying to mark, first off.
Flared in toward Murphy, headed away.
It's also the body's natural tendency. I had this conversation with another commentator, Josh Eastern, earlier tonight about systems, specifically El Paso Locomotive. And when you're used to having a mark in one area or another, your body's natural movement tend to take over, right? I mean, it could be as simple as entering into a building. If you live in an apartment and you're used to opening door to a left, you move into a new place and it opens to the right, I promise you, there's gonna be a time where you go to open the door and you get it wrong. It's the same thing as a defender. You're used to having coverage either left and right, or if you're in the 4-back system and you're in the middle, you still have the same coverage, right? It's just in another spot. So as he starts to pinch back over a little bit, he's responsible for a lot more. Now, I will say that you'll see Seb Dalgard continue to drop off deeper as the game goes on to try and close things out, at least in theory. You know, there are tendencies within every single system that you want to pinch back over and try and close a game out. Leo Fernandez doing the same thing. He's been dropping as well to try and help out because of the onslaught of movement coming from Miami FC.
Connor Antley was down behind the play. It continued around him, but now they need to stop things. Didn't get quite a clean look at what happened to Antley. Let's see if we can find it here.
Oh, he gets stepped on.
Ooh.
Lamar Walker doesn't mean to. He's jumping over the player to try and get to it. But as he does, just steps right on that ankle of Connor Antley. And you're hoping that's just something after the fact where you pick up a bone bruise, nice little Epsom salt bath, and be on your way. And they're watching it right now. They're not making the sub in case there is an issue with Connor Antley.
Junior at 2 and Sebastian Guenzati with the 2 ready to check in. But to your point, those would have been subs 4 and 5. And you saw Neil Collins come over and have the 4th official hold off for a moment.
Well, if you have to change Connor Antley, now you're moving either Lawrence Wyke or Van Kazeel into that center back on the back line. It's easy enough because they're both more than capable, but it does change the mentality of what sub you're trying to make moving forward. Again, most of the time in this situation, Joe, it's a stinger. You get stepped on, kind of reverberates through the leg, takes a couple of minutes to get back to business, and usually you come out on the positive end. That's the hope here for the Rowdies and Connor Antley.
And he's already back out on the field. They did still hold those subs. You see there, bottom of your screen, Guenzati at 2, still waiting. But now next opportunity, imagine they'll be coming on as Antley continues. Stanley off the hand, or maybe not. Osmanovic was right there and was looking right at it. Certainly a better vantage point than I. Shielded for Cochran. And a foul is called against Palacios. Here come those subs now for Tampa Bay. Fernandez, LaCava out, Guenzati at 2 in.
For the visiting Tampa Bay Rowdies, leaving the game, number 11, Leonardo Fernandez. He's replaced by number 6, Junior Hilton. And leaving the game is number 19, Jake LaCava. Replaced by number 13, Sebastian Guenzati. In the 82nd minute.
One wonders if they're about to change the entire shape. If you bring Lawrence Wyke onto the back line, Van Kiesel up into the middle, but drop him underneath to create really this triangle. One pinched under, Junior Etu next to Lewis Hilton, and just go with the 2 striker look the rest of the way, and Guenzati and Lucky M. Kanzana to try and close the game out. Would that really remove some of the buildup that we've seen on the interior for Anthony Pulis and co?
That's the beauty for Tampa Bay. You talked about it a bit in the first half. Just the different looks they can show without necessarily changing anybody. Before we get into that a little bit, you be the judge. Did it hit the hand? Did it not hit the hand?
It's really hard. It definitely hits the chest, and then where? And then here's my next question. Look at the arm itself. It's right next to the body. I mean, where is it supposed to go?
I agree with the no call.
You think it hits him?
I agree with the no call.
Yeah,
I think it hit the hand, but A, natural position, and B, the way the rules were reworked in the last verbiage change.
Another one.
Another one. You have to start specifying which year, which edition it was, almost like the AP style book. But it comes off the leg and then to the hand. They're trying to crack down on that not being a call anymore. Or if it's unintentionally off a different body part and then the hand, to not call it. So.
And it's also not away from the torso.
Right.
I mean, that is right next to,
but
to the rib cage.
Even if it were, that's part of the rework where if it comes off your thigh and then hits an outstretched hand, they'd still like to not call that because it's a weird ricochet and you didn't intentionally do that in the first place. And what is up, what is down, I don't know. It's the one gray area in the game that just simply cannot be figured out. And we could probably tweak it as many times as we want, and we probably won't figure it out. Adonijah Reed is getting ready to check in as well for Miami. It'll be their 5th and final. Walker, now Stanley. Ba, his bit of brilliance 20 minutes ago now, 64th minute, made it 2-1. All quiet on the Miami front since then.
Just watch, though, with Junior Etu coming on, they flatten out the midfield now. It's basically Wyke, then Hilton, and then Etu. And there's space to pop in and out of. Already, Josh Perez is finding it. There's like this 5 to 7 yard gap in between the back line and the midfield 3. Can you work yourself into it and then peel off?
Murphy on the turn, it's blocked. Kasana. Guenzati calling for it in the middle. Gets it. Guenzati back and forth and back again, goes down. and wins it back. Guenzotti's shot blocked. Nervy moments for Miami as they try to keep it a 1-goal margin. Here comes that change for Miami. Reed in, Perez out.
Still waiting on the breakthrough for Sebe Guenzotti. Heck of an effort put forth.
He's replaced by number 30.
Good recovery on the back end by Benu Feimu to slide back over, and Josh Perez, who took a bunch of knocks tonight, continued to push through. The tendency for this team is to make changes 60, 65, 70 minutes. He pushes all the way to number 87. And you mentioned Othello Ba on the goal just outside 20 minutes ago. This is the other man who's been bad for Miami FC recently. And Adonijah Reed, the game changers that allowed them to both stay in and grab some points recently.
Murphy taken down hard. That one might be a yellow. It is. 4-2. Tell you what, the way we saw the yellows dished out early in the match, things significantly slowed down. But at 2 joins the book.
A yellow card has been issued. Tampa's number 6, Judy Anadolu, in the 86th minute.
And of course, as I say that, in rapid succession, Guillen picked one up for dissent.
Christmas. As we're falling behind on pace here. Well, certainly a character test tonight for Miami FC, hasn't it been? This could have been easily, what, 3-4-0, and just walked away from it instead. The greatness that was the Tampa Bay Rowdies for the better portion of an hour. There's been a lot more chasing recently, even with the fresh legs that have come on. And now the shape change. Is this a hold-on type moment? It kind of feels that way, doesn't it?
They held on against Louisville. They did not against Tulsa. Elsewhere, Sacramento makes it 2-0 against Detroit in Detroit. So more good news for Tampa Bay, but the concern now is still making sure you hold on to the 3 points here. If you do, you get losses from Detroit and Pittsburgh to help your case and put you into 3rd place.
Well, not only that, you and I were chatting behind the scenes coming in. We won't expand upon it too much, but you made a good shout for Sacramento Republic, which I agreed with. And how they're a team that even with Open Cup, you got to keep an eye on, and what could be in the future. That could be 2 wins in a row if they can see it out against San Antonio and Detroit, 2 of the teams on the upper echelon of the Eastern and Western conferences, respectively.
We talked about how tight the standings are in the Eastern Conference coming into the day from 3 down to 8. It's a different world in the Western Conference. 3rd place down to 10th place.
They're a mess.
Is separated by 4 points in the West. It's cliche probably, but it's certainly the wild, wild West this year, and it's going to be that way until the very end, it seems. Is there one more moment in this one for Miami? Murphy to Segbers. And I say one moment because that's really all it was. Out of nowhere, that one positive build-up. Terrific strike from Othello Ba from an impossible angle. It's one of their 2 shots on target, and it made all the difference as far as making this much tighter down the stretch. You can't read a ton into expected goals all the time. So many coaches are moving toward embracing that advanced stat, and the advanced stats given to us is 2.7 to 0.6 in the expected goals in favor of Tampa Bay, yet we still have a game here.
The 4th official has indicated there will be
5 more minutes still.
Added stoppage time.
Is it just me, or have we not really seen Mark Segbers?
Outside of that one play,
not a ton, right?
Where he had the ball that sat behind him when he was ready to gear up for the shot. Not a ton. Here's Reed. Murphy. Akinyoni back toward Murphy. Segbers will take it. Segber's inside. Adonijah Reed forces a save by Cochran. There's Segber showing up with a nice, incisive pass.
Most of the action that we've seen has been Othello Baugh, Lamar Walker, and then recently Adonijah Reed, but you've got to find a balance to try and draw them out a little bit here. As Segber's comes high, you get a committal. Aaron Guillen comes up a little bit. Junior at 2, late to come over. He's trying to find that trailing run, but as has been the story all night long for both of these squads, you have to give a lot of praise to the back three on the recovery runs. Even when it's broken down, they've found a way to get back in and push the threat aside.
Stanley curling it. Nobody in a blue shirt within 3 yards of it. Three remaining of the 5 allotted. Walker tried to thread the needle, recovers. Segbers. Here's Velo. There's a lot of players standing around for Miami.
There's a lack of aggression on the defensive front. They're not willing to step up and go win a tackle.
Baugh. Taken down by Velo. And the free kick is awarded.
It's a brilliant touch from Miami FC, and the ball back across by Othello Baugh. Back into negative space. It comes across Lucky M. Kasana. How much contact is there actually? Maybe on the right foot a bit. I mean, real time, it's subjective in general. And right in front of the referee, it was certainly much easier. Who's actually going to have a go now? You've got Aiden Stanley, Lamar Walker, Florian Velo will fancy his chances, although the Jamaican from this distance looks to be the one who stepped up and said, "My turn, boys."
Can Lamar Walker salvage a point for Miami? Walker into the wall, and Cochran is there to fall on it. Just 60 more seconds now for Tampa Bay to see it through. This has never really felt like it's been in peril for Tampa Bay, yet for the last 30 minutes, it's been in peril.
Well, this is some of the stuff that we talked about, though, right? That full, complete performance, and whether it's because of unextended minutes for some players, injury coming back into the mix, the new face of Van Keeziel, it just seems a bit off. I go back to my comments about 2 minutes ago, Joe, in the sense that the lack of aggression, that doesn't mean that you have to go be a tempo team and try and push the envelope to go get a third goal. But it's this lack of effort when the ball does pop out. They're not closing down the spaces efficiently. They weren't getting to some of the challenges quick enough. They certainly created a ton, and yet, the most important thing, the Tampa Bay Rowdies now unbeaten in their last 5, 4-0-1 with a victory here tonight against Miami FC. It all started back against Phoenix Rising and the drubbing that was May 15th. All of a sudden, the Rowdies, on the road or not, have jumped all the way back up into the third, and the world is right in the Eastern Conference.
There was a moment where it felt like Miami might be on the road back thanks to the play of the match, courtesy of Othello Ba from a near impossible angle, brought to you by Hellbiz Live. Puts it off the bar and in the 64th minute.
The scouting report by every coach coming in is trying to keep an eye on the Frenchman and Florian Below, and he is the reason why they're able to get an opportunity. Yes, the angle is tight. Certainly, the strike is great. But finding a way to get this deep and still produce a moment of brilliance and space, then taken by the goal scorer in the 65th minute. One of the more difficult things to do. They grab one back, but it's too little and too late as they'll fall to the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
First meeting this season in Tampa Bay went Miami's way. Second meeting of the season in Miami goes Tampa Bay's way to the tune of 2-1. We're back in a moment to wrap it all up.
I am determined.
I am a dreamer.
I am a Jamaican.
I am Peruano.
I am Italian.
I am relentless.
I am an animal.
I am French.
I get the diamond. I am resilient.
Miami players greeting the fans after the match, but they fall just short tonight. Their comeback attempt was ignited by Othello Ba, but it remained Tampa Bay 2, Miami 1 on the evening. A look back at the highlights from a 90-minute affair that had its moments, but rather slow at other times, and Tampa Bay clings on to the win.
Well, coming in, you wondered exactly how much this game would open up. The answer was only from the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the opening 45 minutes. It culminates in the own goal coming off Bolu Akinyode in the 21st minute. Ball back across by Lewis Hilton, looking from the redirect by Fernandez or Greg. Instead, he gets a little help from the midfielder from Miami, and they're out in front 1-0.
And then right out of the gates in half number 2, LaCava draws a penalty. Fernandez steps up to the penalty. Not quite those two linking up from the open run of play like we've seen, but still go hand in hand. One draws it, one converts it.
What a nightmare for defenders to have to be able to be matched up against Jake LaCava and how busy he is on the field. And then you add Fernandez into the mix as well. Now, we certainly didn't get a ton out of Kyle Gregg, but understand he did a lot off the ball in the occupying of space. He took one of the center backs out of the game. That allowed the other two to have a bit more fun. They get their second goal, and then finally the response. It took an hour for Miami FC to get going, and then they were off and running for the final 30 minutes. Good interchange the entire left side. Aiden Stanley, Othello Ba, Florian Velo, back to Ba. Ba gets it to 2-1, but that would be all it. 25 minutes left in the match, and they could not produce another goal. Joe, your thoughts?
One number that jumped out to me was actually the possession at the end of the day, showing how differently Tampa Bay played it after they went up 2-0. At halftime, that was 53-47 Tampa Bay. Complete inverse. They were content to just sit back, defend really well, and held on to the win.
That's a concern for me, though, because they weren't impressive in doing it. I have no problem with a team sitting back and occupying space and allowing their ability to maintain a solid defensive front. Heck, I made the argument for Miami FC. They were excellent doing it at Al Lang and their 1-0 victory. The problem was the Rowdies were conceding a lot of chances against a better team. They will make you pay. Still, that's quality on the road to the tune of 5 unbeaten for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, and Miami FC still wanting for more.
Rest of the Eastern Conference, be warned, Tampa Bay is back. For the crew that makes this possible and my partner Devin Kerr, I'm Joe Malfa signing off from Miami. Tampa Bay 2, Miami 1.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League Championship cannot be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the expressed written consent of the United Soccer League Championship.